Hi, good afternoon. It's the 25th of February, and we're going to start with the fourth episode of the OKDO Academy. And today we're going to talk about Internet of Things. And today I've got a special guest, writer of the book. Here he is, the man himself, Philip.
Oh wow, Richard, is it you bought a copy? Oh well,
Yeah,
I never knew who bought.
one who bought the book.
Brilliant. Oh, thanks, man. My little bookie. Thanks for that.
Yeah,
I don't know what to say now.
I can recommend this book for everyone who starts with Internet of Things, because it's basically a follow-up on what we're going to tell today, and it's a good start for everyone to discover the unknown, basically.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, the idea was, Richard, I'd read so much stuff about the Internet of Things written by experts, and I was just so completely confused. Honestly, they talk about cloud this and MQTT that, and oh dear. I felt completely lost. And then when I started trying to actually use IoT in my day-to-day work, it's really easy to use. So yeah, I just thought it was time for someone who wasn't an expert to show other people who weren't experts how to use it, how to actually take advantage of the Internet of Things without having to understand all the intricacies of how it actually works. It's quite simple in its basic form.
Yeah.
And that's really what I was trying to get across in the book, and hopefully what we'll be able to get across today. I've got a special guest who wants to say hello.
Already? Let me see.
Oh no, I don't know if you can see that. Okay, no, that didn't work very well. It's a punch bag it's supposed to have a pair of sunglasses and a hat on.
Do I feel some aggression or not? Some frustration?
Well, it's relevant, of course, to what we're going to talk about today, as you know. So,
hey, we already got a question from Olaf Valeur. Can you post a link in the chat? What link do you need? Do you want to buy the book, or do you want another link? Can you explain us? Just let us know Richard, in the comments if you will respond.
We'll post a link to the book anyway, just in case, right?
Yeah, sure, we'll do.
But there's a few links that we'll post. So in fact, let me jump over to our first of our stunningly beautiful slides that we've prepared, just to sort of do a bit of a recap and show where we're going. So can you see that? Is that on screen?
Yeah, it's on the screen. Looks nice.
Right. Well, thanks. Well, this is our fourth lesson of the OKDO Academy. We've been having great fun. I hope you all have as well. And we've built a step counter. We've built a cookie jar alarm. We built a thermometer and a clock using the Kitronic Halo. And this week we are going to build a punch bag. In fact, more than that, we're going to build an IoT-enabled punch bag. And more than that, it's going to be a two-player game. So we're going to be able to see who can punch the hardest.
So I can hit you from a distance.
Well, it's a good way to take your frustrations out of me, Richard. The hat and the glasses was meant to be the same hat that you always wear, and your glasses. So, just. But no, and the fun part of this game is, although it'll be a two-player game, Richard and I can play it. Richard's in the Netherlands, I'm in the UK, but you could be anywhere in the world. So, yeah, hopefully a super fun game. And credit to Finn and Tara. In the photo, you can see Finn and Tara there. They built this. I didn't build it. It wasn't my idea, and I've copied everything they did. So well done, Finn and Tara Berman of South Africa. It's a super project. Thanks for it, and thanks for letting us use it. And we'll put a link at the end, Richard. We'll put that link to their project, so you can work through exactly how they've done it. So that's what we're going to do today. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a power up. Like we did last week. This week's power up is called the XK05 IoT kit for microbit from X in a Box. So, and it works with microbit 1 and microbit 2. So, shall I do a bit of an unboxing of the kit just to show people what it's all about? Right, am I on screen, Richard? Super. So you can pick up an XK05 kit from OKDO, of course. And you would do that if you wanted to turn your microbit into an IoT device. So when you get your XK05, it'll either come in a box or it might come in an anti-static bag. Both of the formats are out there. What you get when you open the box is a little insert. It's a really cool, brilliantly written insert. Should I mention that I work at X in a Box, Richard? Is that probably about the right time. If I sound biased at any point, please, Richard, just call me out. I mean, I work there because I love the stuff so much. So, you know, hopefully some of that passion will come across, but I'll try and be as partisan as I can. So when I say the insert's very well written, it's because maybe I wrote it. But so you get an insert, tells you everything you need to know about the kit, gives you some good links. You get one of these. This is called an IMO1. Now, one of the things, we'll have a little look at some of the X in a box stuff, but all the X in a box stuff has a 4-letter ID. 4-letter, well, it's a 4 digits, 2 letters and 2 numbers normally. And we'll see when we start looking in MakeCode. It kind of makes life easier in terms of doing things like importing libraries. Anyway, the first piece of kit that you get inside your XK05 is an IMO1 bridge. And as with any of the microbit bridges, you're probably quite familiar with them. Your microbit clips into it nice and easily when you're looking at it properly. And that's how your microbit becomes part of the X in a box ecosystem. This IMO1, we could actually spend a whole lesson looking at this, because although it's a really nice little bridge, it's also one of the only you can buy for microbit that allows you to use a micro SD card. So if you see on the back, there's actually a micro SD slot, and you can fit a little micro SD card in there. And then you can write to the micro SD card from MakeCode, which is really pretty cool. And of course, with a micro SD card, you've got 32 gig size limit, so you can save an awful lot of data. We're not going to look at that today, though. Maybe we'll get a chance in a later lesson. Oh, it's also got an RGB LED on the bottom that you can turn on and off. But more importantly, it has a power supply. So if you've got an old microbit 1, this is incredibly useful, because when you power it via the IMO1, you can end up putting a lot more power into your circuit. With the microbit 2, the microbit actually delivers a lot more power to the circuit anyway. But this is it's really useful if you've got a microbit 1 as a way of getting some of those peripherals that just don't work properly, getting them to work. So things like some servo motors. I've had problems before with PIR distance monitors, and it's usually because there's not enough power. So yeah, it's nice and useful. Now, now I've got the other thing is a CW1, and why I'm taking my eyes off the screen, I'm trying to find a pair of scissors. I don't want to rip it open with my teeth. This is the CW. This is the second thing. Oh, you got one. I've already cut mine. I'm going to finish. I've cut it now. This is actually a really powerful little chip. It looks like that, and see how it says CW1 on the top. And this is actually a core in and of itself. So this is a microprocessor. So if you wanted to, you could actually go off and program this, but we're going to use microbit today. And so we're just going to use this for its Wi-Fi capabilities. This is able to send data to a Wi-Fi router. And then last but not least, you get inside your XK05 box a bunch of these things which are called connectors. We call them X-bus connectors. They're quite standard. So there are other people in the marketplace who use these. And this is the key to the X in a box system. This is why I love it so much, because it's so simple. Is that to connect up your X chips? In fact, Richard, do you want to do it on screen and I'll talk? You just need to slide your connector into one of the available connection points on your X chip, in this case on the IMO1, and then you marry up your X chip and you connect it using the style that Richard has just shown you. That really is all there is to it. You do need to be a little bit careful when you connect them to make sure that they're all facing the right way. So what Richard's got there is his IMO1 and his CW01. That's the back that he's showing you. But on the front, you'll see it's got the name. You can see the names. The names are always on the front of the X chips. So when you want to build something, just make sure they're all facing up. Now, obviously, we've just connected 2, but you know the beauty of the system is that you can just connect more and more and more. And you know, 6, 7, 8, 9 X chips is not. It's not difficult to connect that many at all. So you might sit there and, oh, Richard's got an example there of quite a few more. That's a nice looking piece of kit, Richard.
Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it?
Hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about that later, because I know what it is and I know how cool it is. Yeah, let's see if we get a bit of time later. The beauty of the system is, though, if you sort of sitting there and you're thinking, oh, I'd love to build something with a light sensor, an accelerometer. I want it to have a servo. I want to connect it to the internet, and I want a nice screen to output it on. Traditionally 5-10 years ago, it would have taken a really clever person like hours to build that with a soldering iron and cables and all sorts of skills that are really useful and cool, but which aren't so necessary anymore. Because you could go through your X chip collection, get your light sensor, get your screen, get all the pieces that I just mentioned. I forget what it was I actually mentioned. Clip them together like Richard's just shown you, and you've built your circuit. You've built your digital instrument. And for people like me, for example, who don't know how to solder, I'm really bad at soldering, put it that way. I never remember with the cables, when am I supposed to connect it to ground and when am I not? I can't remember all that, and I don't know when to put a resistor in because I don't know. I wish I knew all of that stuff, but thankfully, using a system like X in a Box, you don't need to know any of that. And if what you want to do is create and invent and build and code, you can do all that without having to learn a lot of super interesting and cool skills, but not really necessary to what we're doing here. So that's the XKO5. We've unboxed it. You've just built it. Oh, one more thing, Richard. If you could show us the bridge again. When Richard put it together, I mentioned how the names, the IDs, always have to be facing up. Now, when you connect your microbit into the bridge, that also has to be facing up, outwards. So the front of the microbit is, I think, quite obvious to distinguish from the back. It's kind of a smiley face, and that slides in. So everything's facing up. All has to face the right way. So that's how quick and easy it is to build a little IoT device. And we'll see what we can do with that in a moment.
Yep.
Right. Richard.
I think there's one thing we skipped last time. We ended up with the Hamlet board, etc. And you told us that there was some kind of Easter egg on the microbit.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I just so happen to have a few slides about that. So shall I? Okay. So we've looked at quite a few so far over the 4 lessons. We've looked at the very early ones. Last week we looked at the Hamlets, and I mentioned that 23,000 of them were built, and they went out to teachers in it was in November, around about there, November 2015. But there was an issue with those boards. They had to get reworked, so they went through a rework house, and some changes were made, and that meant the final design, the design wasn't final. So a new prototype was developed after that, and it was called the Genie board. Now, the Genie board on the front, it just looks like your standard microbit. You couldn't tell the difference. The reason why the Genie board's different is that we introduced a logo on the back, and it's very small. And I've highlighted it here in the image, and it's called a Genie lamp logo. Now, only 72 of these prototypes were built, so they're pretty rare and they're pretty cool. And the lamp logo was meant as a celebration. There's an imagery from the old days of computing when you had to solder stuff and use cables and wires, and it was all sorts of fun. But typically, you would connect a peripheral up to your microprocessor, turn it on, and well, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you would be greeted with a puff of smoke as your peripheral died a death because you had the wrong resistor, or it was soldered incorrectly, or it just wasn't compatible. So it was not uncommon for peripherals to just go poof and go up in a puff of smoke. And that was, became an in-joke amongst makers of the day, where the idea was that the puff of smoke was inspiration, and it was knowledge. You had now learned how not to do something. And because we felt that we'd learned exactly how to build a microbit, and this was the first microbit that really is pretty much identical to the ones that then went out to 1 million school kids, we put the little lamp logo. We did it firstly to distinguish it from other prototypes, but also because it carried a bit of meaning, and it was kind of a triumphant thing. And so yeah, that was the Genie board. yeah, we were having fun by then, naming all our boards, and we probably spent more time trying to name the boards than we did designing them. But it was fun. It's got to be fun, hasn't it?
But Philip, you showed a lot of boards. Is there a place where people can see the boards? Are they collected somewhere, or?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yes, they did. I mean, the BBC collected all of these. So they made sure that every different prototype, they put aside 1 or 2, in some cases 3 or 4, and they put the collection away in a safe place. And well, obviously the hope was that microbit would be the success that it has been, and that then there might be some interest in the in the history and in all these prototypes. And as it turns out, because the microbit has been so successful, there is some interest, and I believe that the collection has been acquired by the Science and Industry Museum in Manchester. So yes, the collection is now owned by a museum, and my understanding is that sometime after the lockdown, the microbits will go on display. So I mean, I don't know any more about that. It'll happen when it happens. But yeah, at some point you will be able to go and see all of these in person. In fact, I've actually, while I was preparing for today, I found an old one. I got one of these, which is really cool. It's an old green board. Looks a little bit like the new microbit because it has the logo pulled out in copper. Cool. But yeah, I've actually got one. I should probably send it back to the BBC though. Shouldn't have shown you that. But it was so exciting to find one of the old ones. But yeah, soon they'll be on public display, and anyone who's interested can go over and have a look.
Cool. Well, then I need to come over as soon as it's possible to come over and watch the microbit.
You're always welcome in the UK, Richard. You know that.
Oh, you left. No. Shall we go to the lesson for today and get started?
Shall we? All right, let's do that. Okay, so let me just get onto the right slide. We've looked at the XK05 board. We've talked about how it's got Wi-Fi on it, and now we're going to build some. We're going to build an IoT application. We'll talk about some of that in a moment, but let's talk about what applications typically involve. Now, especially with our physical computing, most of the programs and applications that we build will start with an input. And quite often that input will come from the real world. So with our step counter, the input was the accelerometer being shook. And indeed with our cookie jar, the input from the real world was the cookie jar being disturbed. Once that data is collected, it is then typically processed. Our microbit would receive that data from the real world and do something with it. And then the data is output. So, for example, we had a screen that showed how many steps we'd taken, and we looked on screen at that number, and that was the output. Yeah. Or with our cookie jar alarm, the output was a sound. Our speaker made a loud noise, so we knew someone was fiddling with our cookies. So input, bit of processing, output, and that's fairly typical. Look, there's bound to be exceptions where that's not the case, but by and large, most of the programs will operate with that sort of pattern. And what we're going to do today is the same pattern. So for an input, we're going to take a punch bag, we're going to connect a microbit to it, and it's going to record acceleration again. So we're still using the accelerometer, we're just finding all sorts of crazy different applications for it. So the input is going to be a microbit being shook because it's attached to a punch bag. We're going to do a little bit of processing, not much at all, and then we're going to output the data to our Wi-Fi module. So instead of the data being sent to a screen or being sent to a speaker, we're going to send it to our Wi-Fi router, and well, we'll see what happens with it there. Now, there is a slight difference. Obviously, once we output something to the screen, it just shows up on the screen, no problem. Or we output it to a speaker and it makes a sound, and then that's sort of done. When we output to Wi-Fi, we've actually got a couple of targets that we have to get to. So firstly, we have to connect to our Wi-Fi router, just like your mobile phone or your Xbox or any of your other devices that you have in the home. If you want to get it online, you have to connect it to your Wi-Fi router, and you'll add your network name, your SSID, and a password to do that. Now your phone remembers it, so you've probably only ever done it once with your phone, but I'm sure you're familiar with having to connect a device to a router. once the microbit's connected to the router, it can send data to the router, and then the router can send that data to any computer in the world that's actually listening for data coming from the internet. So there will be machines out there that are ready to take as an input data from something like the device that we create. So it's just another input-output module. And we are going to use what we're going to call an IoT platform. Now, I'm going to try not to use much jargon today. An IoT platform is basically just another computer. Think of it as a computer that we're sending data to. And that computer, we can then access it over the internet. We'll see if what I'm saying doesn't make any sense as I say it. When you see it built and implemented, hopefully it'll make more sense then. You'll see how simple it is. So before we build our program, there's 4 pieces of information that we're going to need. When we connect to the router, we'll need the SSID, network name, and the password. And when we connect to our IoT platform, we're going to need something similar. We're going to need a name, an ID, a device name. Each of the different IoT platforms that you might want to connect to, they'll have slightly different names for all of these things. So that's one of the things to look out for. But you'll need a device name, a device ID, whatever, and a password, which is often, but not always, but very often referred to as a token. So 4 pieces of information that we're going to need. I think with that, Richard, should we start building a program?
Cool.
Let's do that. You're in MakeCode.
And in MakeCode, I've got the basic library. And I have to add a few blocks. Like Philip said, we're using the CWO1, the Wi-Fi module. So if I go to the extensions, I can go to the blocks of the Wi-Fi module.
Well, let me add in there, Richard. It's really easy to load up your XInnerbox libraries, extensions, because the prefix is always the same. Like Richard's just typed XInnerbox /pxt-. Now, fair enough, you have to remember that, which is a bit painful. But after that, whatever X chip you have in your hand, you just read the ID off of it, and you add the ID at the end. So because we want to use the Wi-Fi module, Richard's typed CW1 at the end, and that's opened up the library.
Yeah, and then when we have the library here on the bottom, on start, I'm going to put in the credentials that Philip told me. So I have to connect to a Wi-Fi.
Yep.
Put in the SSID and the password. Let's say the name of my Wi-Fi is my Wi-Fi. And I've got a really good password, not my...
Now, these aren't your real details. Let's point that out in case anyone was thinking of hacking Richard later.
Oh, they can try. I'm curious. It's not my Wi-Fi. So it's going to be...
Yeah, we have one we prepared earlier with that we'll show you with the real details in.
Yeah, this is just the demo.
Okay, so Richard, you've just connected to Wi-Fi, but we need to pick an IoT provider, don't we? There's loads of different IoT people we can connect to.
Yeah, exactly. This is the first step, just to connect to your router, and then we have to go to connect to a platform. And the platform I'm going to use today is All Things Talk, and that's shortcut is ATT. And we need to connect, like Philip said, with a token and a device ID. And basically, the way I explain it is the token is the access to your account, and the device ID is access to your device. Okay. And you've got a name for that. We come back to that in a bit later.
Yeah, and I mean, we're using ATT because it's super easy. We're quite familiar with it, and obviously we have special blocks for it in the CW01. But the project that we're going to share with you, the link, actually uses a different platform called OKDO. And we've done this on purpose. We want to give you a taste of different IoT platforms because they are all quite similar and slightly different. So by showing you ATT on screen and giving you the example with UBDots, hopefully you'll begin to see some of what's generic and what links them all, because it really is kind of simple to connect to any IoT platform as long as you can find the credentials. So that's why we're using ATT today. Now, what we want to do, Richard, is we want to send data to the IoT platform, right? And the data we're going to send is acceleration data.
So we're going to send a value, and we can get the acceleration from our input, from our own onboard sensors. And let's say we pick this one. We don't want X, but we want to have the strength. How hard is it accelerating? And then we have to pick an asset. And we can create the asset as long as we give it the same name as we give it in All Things Talk.
Now, Richard,
example, yep.
Let me jump in there, because I always find the term asset to be a little bit jargony, even though it is meaningful. In effect, do you know what? Should we jump over to ATT and actually show how we set this up? Because then I think it will be more obvious what the asset actually is.
Sure.
Do you want to drive us? Yeah, let's do that. Thanks.
I will.
So I presume you've already set up an account. So we won't show you how to create a new account, but I mean, most of these platforms, it's kind of simple. You sign up. I signed up with my Google credentials, so that was really simple. So it's normally quite easy to create a new account. And once you've created an account, typically you'll have access to a dashboard or a home space or something, a landing page of sorts. I'm trying to fill in the gaps, Richard, while you...
I'm there.
Right, so this is Richard's, that's kind of your landing page, isn't it? Where you go to whenever once you've logged into your ATT account.
Yeah,
so
correct.
Talk us through it, Richard. What do you do now?
Yeah, there are a lot of things on the screen, but what I want to do now is I want to click on create a new device. So I want to set up something new, and you can see there are a lot of devices already on it, which you can pick. Also some X-in-a-box devices.
Oh, isn't that in the air? That's what you were showing us earlier, wasn't it, Richard?
Yeah, exactly. In the Air is a project we did about measuring air quality all over the world, and you can monitor the air quality with particulate matter, CO2 values, etc., and compare them with other schools or houses worldwide.
Sounds brilliant. But for now, what are we going to do? You're just going to add...
We're going to go to your own device, and we can give it any name we want. So, for example, let's call it microbit. Connect. You see in the background, it creates a device with the name microbit. And I can create an asset.
So an asset, how would you describe an asset? What is it?
I think the best way to describe an asset is that it's a point of a name of a value that you want to send over, a bucket.
You kind of want to call it a variable, don't we? But it isn't exactly. And I should point out at this stage that people who count themselves as experts in IoT are probably cringing listening to us, because we're not trying to appeal to experts here. So we're going to call it a variable. It's like a variable, just like we had a variable in our make code. Well, not in this one, but we saw that in previous lessons. So you're kind of setting up a variable in your dashboard, and that's where we're going to send the data to, isn't it? So please carry on, Richard. You're creating an asset.
Yeah, we're going on with a sensor, and we have to give it a name, and we have to remember this name because this is the same name we're going to use into our code of make code. So for example, what shall we do? Let's say I take the word punch. And down there, I will say it's a number. And I create the asset. So now there's an asset created with the name punch, and it's a sensor, and it's a number. What Philip was saying earlier is that I also have details for my account. So here I have my device ID. That's the one that I need to copy to go on the make code. And here I've got my token, which I have to put in the place for the token. I'll show you in a second again. So we've got the name punch, and we've got the details for the device. And now I'll go back to make code. I think this is the right screen. Yep. I can put in here my token and my device ID that I just had. And I can write down here the name of the asset, punch.
Yeah. And that, by and large, is all the code that you need. You connect to your router, you connect to your IoT platform, and then you send data to a specific variable inside that IoT platform. Now, Richard, I'd suggest you add a pause, just because I have found in testing that putting a pause after in the forever block does help a bit. I don't know why, but I always do it. Maybe, I mean, occasionally you don't need it, but I do it. And so we've basically written an IoT program in 4 lines of code, 3 really, if you don't count the pause. This is why I think it's fair to say that it is fairly simple to turn your microbit into an edge device. Now, what I'll do, Richard, I've got one here with the same code that I programmed earlier. So shall I just power it up and show people the sequence here? Now, I'm actually going to use a microbit 2 and a microbit 1 now. A bit later, we'll use a microbit 2. The SK05 works well with both the microbit 1 and the microbit 2. But there's a reason why I want to show you it working with both. So when I'm using a microbit 1, the amount of power that you can get through the microbit isn't enough to give your Wi-Fi enough of a boost. Your Wi-Fi needs more power. So with a microbit 1, you need to power it up through the IMO1. So I'm connecting it. Why can't I see it? There it is. Everything's reversed. Right. So I've plugged my IMO1 into a USB power port, and it's shining like so. Now, it's important that you do this with the microbit 1 as well. So you'll see there's a blue light. You maybe can't see that it's blue, shining on my CW1. It has to be blue. If it's a different color, it's not going to work. And you will potentially see green, depending on how you connect it up. So connect like this, power through your IMO1, then connect your microbit like such. Right, so that's now going through the process, the code that Richard just shown you. It's just working through it. It's trying to find my Wi-Fi module. So it's going to flash the hash a few times while it does that. Where are you, Wi-Fi? Where are you? And any second now, it's going to show a nice big happy smiley C, and that means it's connected to my Wi-Fi. Excellent. Now, I got to be honest with you, right? I have done IoT programs like this, probably 100 of them by now, maybe more. And I always get excited when it connects. I always get excited when I see the C, and I always love it when I see the tick, especially when you're in a live lesson where things can go wrong. But let's just check that. Richard, I'm going to jump over to my IoT platform. Do you want to share that screen? Are you sharing?
Sometimes I'm so fast.
Oh, okay. I can't see because I've only got the one monitor. So you can see the All Things Talk Maker platform on my screen, and you can see this. I called it P1 I didn't call it Punch, but I probably should have. And you can see how the data is updating. I'm waving my microbit. I don't know if you can see that. Let's have a look.
Yeah.
Live data. So that's all the data there that I've just collected, and it's gone onto my internet platform. Now, as you'll see, we'll show you before the end of the lesson. We'll show you how to use some of that data and what you can do with it. But for now, we have just built an IoT edge device. Our microbit's an edge device. It sends acceleration data to an internet platform. The internet platform collects that data and is now showing it as a chart. We have built an IoT application. I'm feeling pretty good about that. Richard, how about you?
It looks good. Looks really nice. Hey, and while we're going on a roll at the moment, and before we get our special guests, shall we do the punching game?
Do you know what? I'm so excited about our guest, Richard. I really am. Can we bring her in first? I want to get this. Well, all right. Let me introduce my good friend, also my boss, and head of the space program at X in a Box. Judy Sandrock is someone who has genuine space heritage. She has been the driving force between a number of different space programs. And we've invited her here today just to tell us a little bit about how these X chips, this X in a Box system that you've seen, how that has conquered space and how it's going to carry on conquering it. So is Judy ready? Richard, shall we
There's
bring
Judy.
her in? Hello, Judy. Did you hear the intro?
Yes, hi. Hello, everybody, and greetings from Cape Town in South Africa. And Philip, I will go later. I will go and have a look at the sea, and I will share your excitement at seeing the sea for the first time. How about that?
Yeah.
And so, yes, thank you very much, Richard. Wonderful to see you as well. So, greetings to you in the Northern Hemisphere, and yeah. So, X in a box in space.
Well, Judy, can I ask you a few questions? Is that okay?
Please.
Because I know.
Of course.
How many times have you been into space? Projects that you've driven? Are you at what's your number now?
Okay, our number right now is 49. So that is 41 in one constellation. In our first constellation was 41 student satellites from schools and students all over the world. And that was launched in 2019. And then last year, we had a mission to the International Space Station. So that only counts as one. And this size over here, which I'm going to show you later, the kind of kit that would go to the International Space Station. And then just this last week on Saturday, we launched another 7 satellites into orbit for schools in the US. And in May, we have our next one coming up. So right now, we're sitting at a whole 49. I must say, Philip, that first constellation of 41 satellites was the largest constellation ever of student satellites in history. So yes, with X in a Box's first launch, we're already breaking records.
Now, I've got another question for you, Judy. I do know the answer, but I think it's an interesting question. Obviously, I could go and buy some X chips from OKDO. They supply a whole bunch. You're not sending the same stuff that I would buy off the shelf into space, are you?
Yes, we are. And that was actually Philip, Richard, that was actually the whole design criteria behind X in a Box, is that what we really wanted to do is we wanted to make a space accessible to everybody. Space needs to be accessible to all students to run experiments. And so we had to have something that was basically over the counter, as they refer to it. When we started investigating what we could use in schools in 2015, we realized that anything that was going into space was just way too expensive. It was unaffordable, and it was a huge barrier to entry to 99% of the students around the world. And that is actually why we invented X in a Box, was so that students could get into space. So yes, it's exactly the same X chips that are going into space. If we have a look, this is a thin set. This is a very specific format of satellite. So here I have an engineering model, and you can see these are exactly the same X chips with exactly the same connectors. The thing is that we had to make these ones in black because of this particular satellite format. The corners had to be cut away. So what we did is we just made these ones in black, but they're actually identical to the normal X chips that you have in your hand. And this particular kit that I'm holding here, I'm holding it in my hand. It gets packaged from here. It goes to California in the USA, and it goes to the International Space Station. No clean room, no special laboratory or anything. Built at home and launched into space. And that is actually, so yeah, please go to the OKDO website and select your chips that you want to put into space.
So if it's that easy, why isn't more people doing it, Judy? It's a rhetorical question, I think. I mean,
Philip, I think I have to say a lot of people are doing it. A lot of schools in the USA are doing it. So I think what it is it's simply about getting the word out there, which is thank you to Richard today, because that's exactly what we want to do. And the thing is, what's really great with OKDO coming on board as a distributor for X in a Box is that we are in the business of designing hardware, manufacturing hardware. We are not in the business of distributing it. So that is why the distributors play such an important role, is that OKDO is able to get it to students so that they can access space. Yeah.
So basically, Judy, what we can do is we can help the schools, getting them trained, give them the hardware via OKDO, and let all the British schools and students into space.
Yes. Yes, Richard, that is exactly what we do. We actually we deliver workshops for schools and students. Yeah. In fact, it was a day before yesterday, on Tuesday, we hosted an international satellite building workshop on Zoom, and we were joined by university students all over the globe. So there's nowadays there's absolutely no barrier to participation, and the students didn't have to pay for that. They didn't have to pay for that workshop at all. They've received their X chips, their X in a box kits. Either it's been paid for by their university, their school, or they've been able to raise funding locally. There's plenty of funding sources around. And they did. They were able to get their X in a box from either OKDO or otherwise the parent company of OKDO.
The question then, Judy, I mean, in terms of students who've been through this program, who've seen their work in space, I mean, what sort of impact? Are they more inclined to become engineers? What are you seeing on the ground then?
Philip, the impact is huge. The impact is really, really huge. And the thing is that what we find is that so many students, especially students outside of the USA, they feel that because they're not in the USA and because they can't sign up and work for NASA, that the space industry is just not accessible to them at all. That is definitely not the case. The European Space Agency is incredibly strong and runs multiple projects every single year for students to participate in, as well as the UK Space Agency. Newly developed UK Space Agency, they also run a lot of projects. They're starting to run a lot of projects. And what we're finding is that students are recognizing that you don't need to become an astronaut to become involved in the space industry. There is so much data that is collected by satellites that really inform us about our planet. There's certain data that we can only observe from space. That certainly involves our environment. So where we've got areas, wilderness areas where there's deforestation, maybe soil erosion, flooding, fires, it's over the horizon. So we can't observe it on the ground. We can only observe it from space. So the thing is that there's a whole host of scientists who are very, very dependent on space data. And another thing is there's a whole industry opening up for medical technology using space. So last week, there was a very interesting experiment that was launched to the International Space Station. And that was actually to grow eye retinas in zero gravity on the International Space Station, because the thing is that we find that they grow very slowly on planets. If you think about it, when we're in the womb, when our eyes form in the first place, we're in the womb, and because of the liquid in the womb, we're actually in a buoyancy situation where it's almost as if we're in zero gravity. So if we want to artificially grow any body part, we should actually be in a perfectly buoyant environment, and the International Space Station is perfect for that.
Yeah. Judy, I could listen to you talk about space for hours. I know you've got so much experience and passion, and I mean, to be honest, I think we'd love to get you back in and maybe even hopefully do a whole academy on space. But we've promised our avid viewers that we're going to build a punch bag today, so I'm going to.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm out of the way. I'm not interested in your punch bag. I'm very pleased I'm in a whole other hemisphere from that punch bag.
But
Well,
one more
it's
question.
IoT. We could put you on it as well. Sorry,
But
Richard.
one more question. Can we create a microbit space program and send the microbit up as well?
Yes. I've been wanting to do that for many years now.
I think we have a new challenge coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. So very, very, very happy with this. With these kits that go to the International Space Station, we could certainly take a microbit as it is with the microbit bridge. Yeah. I'm not sure if you can see here what we have over here is we have the SD card that's collecting the data anyway on the International Space Station, and with the X-in-a-Box interface has that SD card for the microbit. And then Richard, I mean, your involvement has been really great because, a few weeks ago, I received an email from you with messages for students to take to the International Space Station on that SD card. So certainly the microbit can take messages to space and then come back with data. We could certainly
do that. So we can basically transform the In the Air project that we just mentioned in the Into Space project.
Yes, absolutely. Let's do that. Cool. Let's do that. Yeah.
Let's do that.
Let's do it.
Loving it.
And now I think we have to build a punch bag to.
We're running out of time. Lucky it's dead simple.
I'm going.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Judy.
much.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Great to see you. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Well, I must say it's really impressive to see just how involved Judy is with space and her successes there. She's a genuine space cadet.
Yeah,
which
but
is
it's pretty cool. Now we've got our own space program.
Yeah, wow, exciting. Right, well, hopefully we'll be back. We'll be looking at that again, hopefully in the future. Something exciting, but punch bag. So we've got 10 minutes, more than enough time, believe it or not. What we're going to do with our code, Richard, keep the same code. We'll just make a few changes. We want it to be a 2-player, so we want to be able to identify whether it's player 1 or player 2. Yep. For those of you who've seen previous lessons, the word variable should pop into your mind. We're going to create a variable called player ID. It's got a name as any. And this variable is going to be 1 or 2. So if player 1 is punching the bag, the variable is 1, and if player 2 is punching the bag, it's player 2. Richard, let's use the button clicks. So when you push the A button, we'll make it so player 1 is playing, and when you push the B button, it'll be player 2. Now you and I are going to play this over the internet, so I can be player 1, you can be player 2, or the other way around if you like. But if you're playing with someone in the same room, for example, then you would just use the buttons to change who the player is. Player 1, player 2. So we start off, we connect to our IoT platform like we've done before.
But
we set the player to 1, yeah.
Change the player ID here.
Well, we need some assets. So yes, so player ID is 1 or 2, and obviously we want to record that accelerometer data in our IoT platform, like we did in the previous example. But to make our lives really, really easy, Richard, can you just jump back into the IoT platform quick?
Yeah, sure.
Because what we'll do is we'll set up 2 variables, one for player 1, one for player 2. And to make our lives incredibly easy, we're going to call them variable 1 and variable 2. And that'll mean in the code, it'll just be dead simple. So Richard's going to create an asset. He's going to make it a number. It's a sensor. That one's called 1. And the next one will be called 2. Oh, that's a perfectly valid name. We can call them that if we want. But now it's really, really simple, because now when we go back into our code, you're going to jump into make code, Richard?
Yep, going now.
All right, super, thanks. And right, so all we need to do, where we send the data, we're going to send it to the asset whose name is either 1 or 2. Now, because player ID is a numerical variable, we have to send the name as a string. So Richard's just used a text block there that converts a number into a string. And so when the player ID is 1, When it accelerates, it's going to send data to the asset that we called 1 on the internet platform. And then when you push the B button, the variable changes to 2, and then the accelerometer data gets sent to asset number 2.
Yeah,
that's it, really. That's the code. It's so simple. I'm gonna get mine loaded up in the meantime, Richard, so that we can play. I'm gonna connect it to my punch bag. I might even be able to get my son to hit the punch bag for me if I'm lucky.
I'm player 2, by the way.
Are you player 2? Are you set up already? Are you getting a head start on me? So Richard and I set up a pin board earlier, and it's a public URL. Anyone can actually see it. And what will happen is it will show off the data as we send it. So mine is just about ready. Okay, I'm player 1 then, Richard.
Yeah, let's go on.
Well, I'm not going to try and compete with a young man like yourself. I'm going to ask my son, who's sitting here a few meters away from me. Son, would you be so kind as to punch the bag for me? Try not to make it bang into Dad's head. Go on, good whack. Well, there we go. Thank you very much. How's that? What did I get there? I didn't shout much, did it? Give it up nice.
I think he can punch you better and harder. And, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
That's got to be a winner. Thank you, son.
I think he can do harder.
No, no. That one nearly took my head off. Dear, they grow up quickly, don't they?
I think this makes it clear. I mean, we can share data from 2 different countries or even into space, like Judy said. Yeah. And send it via our Wi-Fi to the internet to a location on another computer, and there compare all the data or collect all the data and publish it as a dashboard. And I've put the dashboard in the chat as well, so everybody can look on the dashboard, compare the data on it, and you can make this as easy as possible. But this is really, really simple to do.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, the complexity comes in with the IoT platform. So, you know, if we had time, we could look at the pin board that we built, and we built it really quickly. But the example that we're going to link to has a more, they spent more time creating a nice looking, attractive pin board or dashboard. But that dashboard that Richard just showed you on screen, that's publicly accessible. In fact, Richard, can we share that URL?
Yeah, I don't know why anyone would it's in the chat.
Oh, so you can actually go there right now and see the data that Richard and I are collecting, and obviously we could have collected any of the other sensor data from the microbit. We could have used the magnetometer, the light level, the temperature, just as it was easy to send the accelerometer data across. So it's just as easy to send across any of the other data that you collect with your microbit, or of course if you're using another system, extra sensors. Whichever system you're using, it's just as easy to send that sensor data over as well. And one more thing I will add, that the application we've used here is obviously a punch bag, and that's just meant to be fun and light-hearted. But the exact same code, you could potentially take your microbit and attach it to a window, right?
That's basically my point, what I wanted to say. You can do a lot of things with Internet of Things. You can create a lot of applications, security systems. You can get a tweet or an email as soon as something happens. But you can also do a lot of things with the microbit. And I think in the last 4 weeks, we've shown you a diversity of possibilities with NeoPixels, with alarms, with sounds, with Internet of Things, even a space program. We've got it all. And we would like to hear from you what you would like to do with the microbit. What would you like us to show you the next time or in the future academies? Send your ideas, suggestions to the email address on the bottom of your screen. It's academy@okdo.com. You will receive a gift voucher for the website okdo.com, so you can buy cool stuff from their website. But think about some creative ideas. What would you like to see that Philip and I will explain to you or test for you or build with you or maybe build together with you? So we can get some cool and more ideas. And I think if we're talking about some cool ideas, Philip has a really good one to end with.
Yeah, I kind of enjoyed doing our Power Up of the Week award the last couple of weeks. It's been great fun just hunting for exciting stuff. And so we have some winners this week. Are we sharing screen now, Richard?
Yeah, your screen. Yeah.
Super. Well, this week, Twitter seems to be full of these things called tickle bots, which are super cute, super fun. They tend to waggle their arms or raise their eyebrows or do all sorts of cool stuff with servo motors, and people are adding other things as well to make them more fun. But they're really simple DIY robots that you build with cardboard and you dress them up. And I found quite a few this week, and there's a clear winner, but I wanted to do shout outs to a couple of runners up. So Martine Seegers or Pinky Pepper, whatever you prefer. Your penguin was super duper cute, and it was it was a contender for first prize. And Rachel, your box, it's just amazingly cute. I don't know why. It's just fantastic. I loved it. But we do have a clear winner, and it is indeed Martine Seegers, Pinky Pepper, and this fantastic little bird. So you've got the video, haven't you, Richard?
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah.
All right, so let's have a look at the video.
It's a 1 minute video that I will show you.
That'll finish us off, I think. And do you know, if you look at something like this and it makes you smile, then I think someone's done something right, because this just makes me laugh. It's brilliant. Look at it. Looks like it's going to take off.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, that's activated. I think I was reading the tweet. It's activated by proximity or light or something. So
your proximity sensor.
It's got all the I don't think we'll go through the whole video, Richard. It was that bit at the beginning that was, oh, that's lovely, isn't it? Brilliant. What you can do with a microbit's amazing. That's kind of it for the week, isn't it? Hopefully, I mean, I don't think we've got a date for our next one, but we certainly hope to be back quite soon. Like Richard says, send through your ideas.
I hear some videos.
I think that sounds like the bird in the background flying off. But yeah,
I think we had a great episode today with Internet of Things, with the space program, with parrots flying up in the sky and punchbacks. I think we got a lot of excitement in today. Please come to us in the comments or by email for sending your suggestions so we can create the new episodes for the OKDO Academy and get back with some exciting stuff for you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks, everyone. It's been a pleasure.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah. See ya. Bye.